All right, Nick, let's talk about the New England Patriots. The big news out of the draft is obviously the selection of quarterback Drake May, but there's more to the draft than just that because New England was able to find a bevy of weapons that seemed to be perfectly suited for a guy of May's caliber. Let's get into the article and we can talk more about what we mean on the other side. This is from Patriots.com. It says Wolf and the Patriots' top brass double dipped at wide receiver in this year's draft, selecting Washington's Jalen Polk at 37 and UCF wideout Javon Baker at number 110. To pair two deep threats with the cannon arm May, the duo complements each other nicely with Polk as movable chest peaks and Baker as a traditional outside receiver. There's also one more selection. The Patriots got great value with Bell as their final selection of the draft, talking about Jaheim Bell from Florida State. As the fourth big board hit for me this year, Bell is undersized but explosive pass-catching weapon who can move around the formation. It just seems like Drake May has three new targets that he can learn and grow with who all seem very capable of his talents. I'm curious what your thoughts are, but New England fans, in the comment section below, let us know, out of these three receiving targets for Drake May, who do you think is going to be the most successful this coming season? Who do you think is going to get the most yards, most playtime, etc.? Let us know in the comment section below. But Nick, what are your thoughts on these new potential weapons for Drake May?
Well, look, anytime you draft a young quarterback, you always want to make sure you have an offensive structure when it comes to the playmakers around him that is aligned with his talents. For example, when the Chiefs traded up and got Patrick Mahomes a number of years ago, they had a number of incredibly fast receivers. They had an army of speed demons, which, of course, with a guy like Mahomes' cannon, fits perfectly with what he's trying to do as a young quarterback as he tries to, grow and develop and handle the mental side of the game as well. We saw the same thing with Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. Burrow, of course, is incredibly accurate. He puts the ball within centimeters of where he wants it to go. When you have a quarterback who is that accurate and can throw with that much touch, you can get away with smaller, thinner, I'll say it like that, receivers who are great at yards after catch, looking at guys like Jamar Chase. Now, what's different here is that the Patriots have aligned themselves with playmakers that are perfectly suited with May, but they did it at the exact same time they got Drake May, and that's incredibly valuable. The Chiefs, going back to the Mahomes example, already had a lot of the speed playmakers around it. They just brought in Mahomes, and then they were off to the races. The Bengals drafted Joe Burrow, but then they had to draft Jamar Chase the next year. It took a few years to really get things going in Cincinnati. The New England Patriots are in a very great position in terms of the fact that they have their quarterback in May and they have their playmakers around May at the exact same time. So they can grow, mature, and develop together. I think that is sometimes a problem when you have a young quarterback and there's an age discrepancy between some of his best veterans and some of his best skill players, whether the skill players are younger or older. Sometimes there can be some issues there. That's one of the reasons why the Bengals drafted Jamar Chase, because obviously Chase knew Burrow from their time at LSU. Here, May, along with Polk, Baker, and Bell, will all grow and develop and get on the same page at the exact same time. And that, I think, is an incredible accomplishment by Elliott Wolf and the entire Patriots front office, because I understand the temptation is, right, you get your receiver in the second round and Polk, you're like, okay, let's look at other positions. We've got one playmaker. Let's try and figure out other holes on this roster. But I love the mentality of going into it and saying, no, we got our quarterback. We got him one weapon, but he's going to need a lot more than that. Let's surround him with high caliber playmakers that are perfectly suited to support him. And I think that is probably the smartest move the Patriots made, probably the entire offseason, is making sure that they give Drake May the tools to be successful with a bunch of young, exciting playmakers around him who are perfectly suited to handle and be the playmakers that Drake May needs. I think this is a great job by the Patriots front offense, and I think New England fans should be very excited. Obviously, when you have young guys, there's going to be some ups and downs, but I think over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and potentially beyond, the 2024 draft will look like an absolutely gold mine for the Patriots.
Yeah, Nick, and I kind of like the strategy they went around this draft as well, as far as how they were able to get these guys. Obviously, a guy like Polk in the second isn't too much of, like a steal. He's pretty good. That's probably where he should have gone. This guy's really talented. But having a guy like Baker slide and be able to pick him up in the fourth, I think that's very interesting. And they kind of are capitalizing on a strategy that the Rams proved to the NFL last year, highlighting athleticism scores on the in-game side of things rather than combine scores, where both Polk and Baker did very well. Polk had a 91.3 in-game athleticism score, where Baker had an 87.1. But on the flip side of that, Baker also had a pretty poor showing at the Combine 40, where he ran a 4.54. But you look at another aspect of that. If you look at where these guys were at the Senior Bowl, Baker, he measured in at 20.99 miles per hour, the second fastest time in the Senior Bowl on the field, just behind North Carolina's Tez Walker, who measured in at 21.1 miles per hour, showing that Baker, while running maybe a slower 40 than he wanted to at the Combine, shows in the game when it really counts, this guy has the long speed. He can pull away from DBs and really get open. So I think that this is a guy that slid to them, and they're able to utilize the aspect of, we know what kind of guys we want for Drake May. We know what abilities we want. Now let's look at some guys and try to find some hidden gems. And I think Baker's a guy in that aspect who's really was a steal for them in the ability to ignore some of the combine lower scores he has, look at his game tape, see what he's able to do on the field, and show that, okay, this guy really does have the speed regardless of what he ran in a 40-yard dash. When he's on the field, he is incredibly fast as well. And then Jaheim Bell, I think he's also a very, very big steal. He was very productive at South Carolina, one of the biggest weapons they had, then transferring over to Florida State. He was really good as well, and he's just a hybrid, like they said, move around, running back, tight end type of guy who can play all over the field. But I think these are all, like you said, these are really good guys suited to Drake May, and I think that the way New England went through this draft, was able to get these guys in later rounds, is very, very good.
And I think one final point to hit on, and it's a personal thing for me, all three of these guys are transfers that spent 4 years or more in college football. That means they're grown-ups. That means they're mature, at least on the football field, most likely off the football field as well, which anytime you've got a young quarterback, you want to avoid as much diva action as humanly possible. I think when you've got three young playmakers that have had to transfer, that have gone through some trials and tribulations, they'll be able to acclimate to the NFL atmosphere better than someone who hasn't. So I'm looking for all three of these guys to contribute very early on for the New England Patriots, all around helping Drake May become their next franchise quarterback.